Good evening, friends. I am Dr. Matthew Koshikunnekar, the Honorary Director of the Ecological Concerns, Department of CSI Synod, and a member of the Eco-Justice Committee of National Council of Churches. This is the second webinar on Season of Creation, organized by National Council of Churches. Season of Creation is the annual Christian celebration of prayer and action for our common hope. The ecumenical family around the world unites to pray, protect, and advocate for God's creation. During the 2021 season of creation, from 1st September through 4th October, Christians will be uniting around the theme, a home for all, renewing oikos of God. Today's webinar is jointly organized by National Council of Churches, Dalit and Adivasi Concerns, and the Department of Ecological Concerns of Church of South India. The CSI Synod Department of Ecological Concerns has been organizing a series of orientation classes on climate resilience since 4th May 2021. In 20th orientation class, we are collaborating with the Tribal Adivasi Department of National Council of Churches to celebrate the season of creation. Reverend Canon Doctor to inaugurate today's webinar. Reverend Rachel Marsh is using her influence as the environmental coordinator of the Anglican Church of South Africa to do a lot of positive work. She is a passionate advocate of climate justice, and with that in mind, founded the Green Anglicans movement, which has spread from South Africa to other states. Reverend Marsh, concerned with climate issues and the environment, began with her faith in her church. She is a vibrant environmentalist. Reverend Canon Rachel Marsh, we cordially welcome you to this program. Dr. T.V. Sajeev, a scientist in forest entomology, has extensive research experience in insect population dynamics, biocontrol, alien invasive species. He took a doctorate from Cochin University in environmental studies. He has a vast number of publications in international journals. He is a socially committed scientist. Sir, on behalf of these two organizations, I cordially welcome you to this program. A warm welcome to all the NCCI office bearers, especially Reverend Asir Ebenezer, the General Secretary of National Council of Churches of India, Eco-Justice Commission members Michael Angelios, Renam, and Dalit Adivasi Tribal Executive Secretary Pradeep Bensoya. I welcome all the participants in the webinar. There are 3 announcements. The participants can write their questions and clarifications in the chat box. We are recording the program. It will be available in the YouTube tomorrow evening. Immediately after the vote of thanks, a link will appear in the chat box. Those who are interested to participate in the quiz have to click on the link to get the question paper for today's quiz. You will be directed to Google Sheets. We will give you 7 minutes to answer. We will value it within the next 5 minutes, and the results will be announced immediately. In order to fill the gap between the vote of thanks and valuation, we will be posting a small video. First 3 members will get cash awards, and following 10 prizes from the CSI Synod. I call upon Reverend Asir Ebenezer for greetings.
Thank you, Dr. Koshi. Greetings to all on behalf of the leadership of the National Council of Churches in India. I congratulate the eco-justice team of the National Council of Churches in India, which has put these 4 webinars together. And it's my duty to thank Dr. Matthew Koshi and the Synod Ecological Concerns for the partnership for the second webinar that is today. As mentioned by Dr. Koshi, the season of creation, a global observance is also observed in India and encouraged by the National Council of Churches in India Eco-Justice Concerns Committee working group. And we've already had one very good webinar on the theme of the rivers. And today, continuing with our conversations on the world as a home for all, the oikomene as the home for all, which is the call for this season. We are trying to concentrate on the theme of animals, and very particularly animals as climate refugees, and which is a very important aspect of understanding animals being displaced from their habitation because of the so-called development. We have taken over their habitats because of development and expansion, and when they move around in their own habitations, which we have inherited, we try to shoot them down or shoo them away. And it's very important for us to look into that concern and affirm the habitation of animals also, who, like human persons, become climate refugees in their own right. In the subsequent 2 weeks, we will also be looking at forests and forest dwelling as a major concern when we talk about the world as a home for all. And we'll also be talking about mountains, which is also very important for us to conserve. So these are 4 webinars: rivers, animals, mountains, and forests, which we have been focusing on this year around the theme home for all. Renewing our relationship with the earth, restoring, help the earth restore itself, and get the churches involved in this activity as a mission activity. We do hope that through these webinars, through these conversations, that the church will be blessed and the church will minister to the whole world, including to rivers, animals, forests, and mountains, which are oftentimes forgotten. And we have been very anthropocentric in our missiological approach. We do hope that these webinars will turn things around to the right side. A very special word of thanks on behalf of the leadership of the National Council of Churches in India to Reverend Canon Dr. Rachel Marsh, the coordinator of the Anglican environment activity in South Africa, and what we learned from Dr. Matthew Koshi and what he had mentioned as he introduced to you. We are very happy that you are here with us, and we want to thank you for your time and consenting to be with us. We do hope that today's webinar will be a great blessing to the many whom you will be addressing today and their local churches which they represent here. A warm word of welcome to Dr. T.V. Sajeev, Principal Secretary for KFRI, who is a strong advocate of climate justice, and in his own role, he has turned things around. And with his experience, we hope that the churches will learn and help minister alongside civil society organizations, so that we will be able to turn things around and keep this world a better place, a place that God wants to be, a heaven on earth, as we pray thy kingdom come. So thank you very much, Reverend Canon Dr. Rachel Marsh and Dr. T.V. Sajeev, for being with us to help us think through this. And we do hope that what you say will be a great blessing as we minister to the whole world. Word of thanks to Dr. Matthew Koshi and my team, Pradeep, Michael, and Renemla, for putting this together. We look forward to a great webinar, and we do hope from this discourse, from these conversations, we will be able to have many ministries in our local churches. I look forward to this great time. Thank you all. Welcome.
Thank you, Reverend Nasser Ebenezer, for the greetings from National Council of Churches. And now we are over to Reverend Dr. Canon Rachel Marsh for inaugurating this webinar.
Thank you very much, Dr. Koshi. Thank you, Reverend Ebenezer, Dr. Sajiv, and all those who are gathered. And I greet you, bring greetings from the Anglican Church of Southern Africa. Shall we pray? Creator God, we thank you for joining us together in this our common home. Thank you that we can gather from different parts of the world, but we share one home together, one oikos. We are one family of God, one oikumene, as we gather around this world. And we pray for your blessing on this webinar as we discuss the season of creation and our calling to care for our fellow animals and creatures on this planet. In your name, amen. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me just put it onto full screen there.
Not share.
Okay, not sharing now. Okay, can you see it now?
No. Ah, so okay. So
Okay.
can
Okay, wonderful. So as we gather for the season of creation, remembering that it's from the September the 1st to October the 4th, what is the season of creation? So the season of creation, as we know, was first initiated in 1989 by the Ecumenical Patriarch Demetrios, who said on the 1st of September, I invite the entire Christian world to offer prayers and supplication for the great gift of creation. And it's wonderful how his vision has grown over the years since 1989. The next most important person to embrace the season of creation was the Reverend Norman Habel, who is a Lutheran from Australia. And he had the vision of putting together from the 1st of September to the 4th of October, which is St. Francis Day, 4 weeks dedicated to praying and preaching and acting, caring for creation. And so it's very significant that we're talking about animals today because the 4th of October, as we know, St. Francis has always been known as the patron saint of the ecology. St. Francis was somebody who loved animals. He preached to animals. He was always surrounded by animals. And we can honor him during this time of the season of creation. So over the years, the season of creation has grown to become a truly global movement. The Anglican Communion Environmental Network joined in 2012, the Evangelical Alliance, the World Council of Churches, the World Communion of Reformed Churches, the Laudato Si movement, the Lutheran World Federation. Each year, more and more and more churches become involved. So it has become a truly global event. And just a few days ago, a wonderful statement came out on the 8th of September, where the Ecumenical Patriarch, the Pope, and the Archbishop of Canterbury called for the protection of creation. So the season of creation is an ecumenical movement where we come together for these 4 weeks to see what is the Bible teaching us, how can we pray, and how can we act for creation. What is the importance of the season of creation? I want to share a quote by a scientist. He was the environmental advisor to Bill Clinton, and he said this: I used to think the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that with 30 years of good science, we could address these problems, but I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with those, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation. And we scientists don't know how to do that. So how do we have a spiritual and cultural transformation that changes the way that we interact with our kindred brothers and sisters, our animals on this planet? The season of creation is one of the ways that we can do this. The former President Nelson Mandela said this: if you talk to a person in a language they understand, you speak to their head. But if you speak in their mother tongue, you speak to their heart. And during the season of creation, we are able to speak to the hearts of our Christians in our churches as we see what the scriptures are telling us, as we pray for that spiritual transformation, which will change the way we relate to this planet. So how can we celebrate the season of creation? So many ways. We can have outdoor services where we celebrate creation. When we say worship outside, we become aware of the birds, the noise of the birds, the sound of the animals in parks, in game parks, on riverbanks. We can stand by the oceans and celebrate the wonder of the fish and the wonder of the dolphins and the creatures in the oceans. We can have outdoor services of environmental healing, where we plant trees, where we do cleanups, where we feel the pain of the creatures that are being destroyed through our lack of care. And we can pray at locations of environmental justice, by a river polluted by acid mine drainage, the site of a possible fracking well, or at a city dump site. And as we worship in nature, we become aware so much more of the creatures that surround us, the birds, the sound of the bees, the pollinators. We can incorporate creation into the prayer services, bringing symbols of nature inside the church building. What we've done sometimes is when we come to receive communion, instead of playing music, we will play the sound of the whales, or we will play the sound of birds, so that we enter into a different space, even within our church buildings. We can use drama, dance, artwork, multimedia, and creation-themed hymns to bring the message across and bring in beautiful pictures of God's creatures. And Season of Creation is also a time of creativity, where young people and children can take the lead in bringing dramas and dance, art and music. Say to the children, bring us pictures of animals, and they will draw beautiful animals that can be placed at the altar as we come to worship God. So the theme for 2021 is a home for all. And we have to recognize that our actions are pushing God's creatures out of their homes. Oikos, the word in Greek for home, gives us the root for three important words. First of all, oikos logos, which means ecology, the study of our common home. Oikos nomos, ecology, the rules of our common home. And oikumene, ecumenical, the whole household of God. So this year we look at the links between ecology, economy, and the whole household of God, how we can respond ecumenically to the challenges we face. It means that we have to hear the cry of the poor and the cry of the earth. And when we talk about the cry of the poor, we are not only talking about human beings, we are talking about all of our fellow creatures. Within the oikos, within our common home, we all have house rules. In each of our own homes, we have house rules. And often the house rules will be something like, if it's broken, mend it. If you have a hole in your roof, you have to mend it. You don't let the hole get bigger and bigger and cause a mess in your house. Clean up your own mess. If you make dirty dishes, you have to clean them. And don't take more than your share. When the food is put on the table, we don't grab and be greedy. And those same house rules that we have in our own human homes are the same house rules that need to guide the economy. Those are the house rules of the economy of our planet. If it's broken, we have to mend it. We cannot no longer destroy ecosystems. We have to restore and renew them. If we pollute, we have to clean it up. The polluter has to pay. And we cannot take more than our share. We cannot have certain nations of this planet that are taking much more than their share, leaving too little for the rest of the planet. Why did we get into the mess that we are sitting in now with COVID-19? It has become a global pandemic, completely changed our lives. The theories are that COVID-19 started in a wet market like this in Wuhan in China, where pangolins and other creatures were kept in cramped conditions, and raw meat was next to it. There was dirt, and the virus jumped from bats to pangolins and then to humans. That is the theory. The reality is that pandemics are the boomerang effect of the destruction of the ecosystem. As we destroy the ecosystem, as we destroy the home for God's wild creatures, we are being pushed into contact with viruses which now jump And there are many more and more zoonotic diseases that we find. We hear of zoonotic diseases, alien flu, swine flu, SARS, MERS, COVID-19, even HIV. First of all, it was SIV, simian immunovirus, which jumped from primates to human beings. And where might the next pandemic come from? The way that we are treating not just wild animals, but also domestic animals, keeping chickens in tiny cages where they peck each other and become sick, keeping other animals, pigs and cows in cramped conditions, concentrated animal feeding operations, pumping them full of antibiotics where they become sick. There is no doubt in my mind that there is a possibility that the next global pandemic may well come from the way that we are treating God's animals. And we eat beyond our share. Too much meat for this planet is being consumed. The Amazon forest is being cut down so that we can grow more and more meat for this planet. Huge herds of cows on which used to be growing the Amazon. People are eating too much. Not only they are getting sick because of too much meat and junk food, but we are making the planet sick. We are eating more than our share. And the planet is burning up because of our overuse of commercial agricultural methodologies. We're destroying the planet. God said this to us: I brought you into a fertile land to eat its fruit and rich produce, but you came and defiled my land and made my inheritance detestable. The season of creation is a time when Christians across the globe can come together in this wonderful ecumenical movement. Imagine 2.5 billion Christians across the globe. If we could embrace the season of creation as a time to pray, a time to act, and a time to make a difference, we would be fulfilling what it says in Romans 8:19, that creation is standing on tiptoe, waiting for the children of God to be revealed. We are part of the creation of God, and yet God has given us a special role to be keepers of this earth and to care for the fellow creatures on this planet. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Rachel Marsh, for a very good introduction about season of creation. You made it clear that the environmental crisis is a spiritual problem, and thank you very much for your inspiring message. Thank you, Rachel Marsh. Now over to TV Sajeev, Dr. TV Sajeev, for the keynote speech.
Thank you, Dr. Koshi. Happy to be here talking to people from across the globe on the concern of we people on the planet which we are living. I'm a scientist. As Dr. Matthew Koshi had told you, I'm a scientist who studies forests. The first time I had gone to the forest was way back in 92, almost 29 years ago. So 29 years ago, when I went to the forest for my studies, and when I started to live in the forest, I had a situation where I had been encountering animals, many different levels of animals of different sizes, shape, behavior. And at that point of time, I can say that when I did my work, the animals were around and they were doing their business and I was doing my business, especially elephants. There'll be herds of elephants, they'll be comfortably feeding there, and side by side, I'll be doing my work. There was absolutely no conflict. That days have gone. Now, when I go to the forest, if there is any elephants nearby, they will come towards me and challenge me. They will try to attack me. Not just elephants, many different animals. Animals have learned that humans are not safe species to interact. And I'm going to tell you why this big transformation happened in a span of 30 years. How did the animals identify we human beings as problem makers, as enemy to animals? As Reverend Rachel Marsh has talked to us, this is something which goes beyond science. We need a new sensibility to get back to the normal scenario where we interact with nature in a much more sensible way. So I'll be telling a few things which will help us to make that correction possible. How can we live in this world in unison with all the other beings on this planet? This planet belongs not just to us, to all the living beings over here. So how can you bring up that connection? How is it possible? So that is what I'll be trying to say. We scientists understand that there's a very important molecule in the planet called water. So precious a molecule. And as you know, water can exist in 3 different forms. It can be ice, it can be water, or it can be water vapor. Now, our planet happens to be the only a place where water can exist in the form of water or as liquid. And why is it so? It is basically because we are critically positioned from the sun. We are at a distance where water can exist as water. If we were a bit more closer to the sun, all the water would have become water vapor. And if we were further away from the sun, it would have been turned into ice. So we are critically positioned, and that makes water available over here, which can kindle life. Now, this is a coarse control of the planet's temperature. And there's a finer control also exerted by another phenomenon called as the greenhouse gases. And there's a small envelope, a thin envelope in the atmosphere, which controls the temperature of the planet in a subtle way. What happens is that when the sunlight comes through and the heat from the sun comes through, the greenhouse gases allow it to go to the surface of the planet. But any heat which is radiated out from the planet will be stored by the greenhouse gases and sent back again back to Earth. So this is the purpose of the greenhouse gas layer. Now, when Industrial Revolution happened, when we started the process of big industries, and when we started to unearth the fossil fuels, starting with coal, then petroleum, then natural gas, we take up the carbon reserves which are down below in the Earth's crust, and we started to burn it. And it is not that we burned it. Now we have become a species who cannot live without burning fossil fuels. And whenever we burn the fossil fuels, the emerging carbon dioxide, it goes up and it joins with the greenhouse gas layer, and the thickness of the layer increases. And it is as if you put a blanket on a cold night and you will feel warm. But what if you put 2 blankets? And what will happen if you put 3 blankets? What will happen is that you will feel hot inside the blankets, even while the temperature is down outside. Now that is precisely what is happening to our planet. The blanket of the greenhouse gases is becoming thicker and thicker, and it doesn't allow any heat to go out of Earth's atmosphere. It is radiating back, and the Earth is becoming warmer and warmer. And when it becomes warmer, the first thing which is going to happen is that the oceans will swell up, because whenever water heats up, when the temperature increases, it increases its volume. The oceans swell up. When they swell up, what happens is that it encroaches upon low-lying land areas, and the shallow areas will be completely submerged. And added to that will be the water which is coming by the melting of the polar ice caps. At Antarctica and the Arctic, we have huge ice mountains, which is when the temperature increases, they start to melt, and that water also adds up to the oceans, and the sea will come up. And this is the first impact. And the second impact is that the species will move away from the normal locations. In the tropical area, especially around the equator, from there, the species will start to move towards the poles, where temperature is much more normal. So this is one movement which is happening in the sea. And in the land, what happens is that the animals and plants also, they will gradually climb up the mountains, because if you go to the top of the mountains, it will be much more colder. So the species will gradually climb up. And you may be wondering how the plants or the trees move. Trees and plants move when they are seeds. The seeds disperse to higher locations, they only germinate. And then after, if you look at the whole scenario after 200, 400 years, you'll find that a particular species has moved up to the top of the mountain. Now comes an interesting question. When the low-lying, when the species which are there in the low-lying areas, when they start to move up the mountains, what will happen to the species which is already on the mountain tops? Where will they go? They will have to leave the planet. And that is what we call as extinction. There's local extinction of species which have started off. Now, this is the way man has impacted the planet. And how can we make this right? The only way we can make this right is to reduce the carbon emission, or in other words, reduce the carbon footprint of we people. And what is carbon footprint? Carbon footprint, we all have our own carbon footprint. If you're a person who is walking mostly or using a bicycle, your carbon footprint will be very low. If you're using a scooter or a motorcycle, your carbon footprint will be high, because the fuel which is burned in that vehicle will be added to your account. If you're using a car, your carbon footprint will be still higher. If you're using a big car, it will be much higher. And if you're a person who is flying around the world in airplanes, your carbon footprint will be much, much higher. If you are building a big house with a large amount of carbon invested over there, your carbon footprint will go high. Now, the trick to save the planet is to reduce the carbon emission, or in other words, to reduce the carbon footprint of each one of us. And if the churches across the globe decide to reduce the carbon footprint, nothing like that, that's going to make a big impact on the planet. And is it possible? I'll tell you the scenario. A few simple questions. Who in the world will be having the largest carbon footprint? Which people, which country has the people with the largest footprint who are emitting large amount of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere? There's a clue in what Reverend Rachel Marsh had presented earlier. She had just touched upon this particular topic. She told that all the countries are not equally emitting carbon dioxide. There are some countries which emit the most carbon dioxide. And the answer to my question is the United States. The people in the United States have the largest carbon footprint. Per capita carbon footprint is the highest for them. Now, the second question is, who has the lowest carbon footprint in the world? The people with the lowest carbon footprint are the people whom we call as the indigenous people, or as mentioned earlier, the Dalit and the Adivasi people, the tribal people. They have the least carbon footprint. Now, what we always try to do when we speak of poor, we always try to help the poor to become rich, and that is the process which we are trained to do, or we are educated to do, which is a absolutely wrong thing to do. The planet is suffering not because of the poor people. The planet is suffering because of the rich people, because of the huge carbon emissions which they cause. And if all the people of the world want to have carbon footprint just like the citizen of United States of America, we will have to have a couple of more planets for getting the resources. So that is a simple arithmetic. So that is not impossible. So normally what happens is that we always educate people, we tell people, and we devise methods, we organize programs to bring the poor uh, from their poor situation and to become rich. Now, you know what it's going to do with the planet. What we need to do is to tell the rich people that you are killing the planet. Just like what Greta Thunberg, the climate change activist, uh, asked the world leaders, you are only talking, you are not doing anything. You need to bring down the carbon footprint, and you need concrete measures on ground to bring the carbon footprint down. And that is something which needs strong action. So what I would say is that uh, uh, keep a watch on the rich people. Try to educate the rich people. Try to tell the rich people that the resource of the planet is not just for them. It is for everybody. And when the rich people take more than their share of resources, it is going to harm the planet. So we need to have a strong education program for the rich people. People should be ashamed of being rich, not for being poor. People should be ashamed of becoming, of buying big cars, or having a very high lifestyle. And we should tell them that it's a shame to live that way. But we live in a society where every rich person and the rich person's actions are being celebrated. So we need to change the table. We need to change the table in such a way that people should become absolutely truthful to the planet. Because one of the questions which we need to answer is how much the planet has been hurt because we lived over here. When we finish our life over here, this is one important question which we will have to answer. My name is Sajeev, and Sajeev will have to answer a question. After, when Sajeev is going to die, I will have to tell, just because Sajeev lived in this planet for so many years, how much has the earth suffered? And this is a very important question the church has to address if we are interested to save the planet. Coming back to animals, as Dr. Koshi had told earlier, we have encroached their space in a big way. And I had fortuitously come up with a book which was written in 1920s, a book on hunting, which was written by a person called Shivadasa Menon. In this book, there's a small incident which is described. The incident is this. There's a small bus which was traveling, and 3 elephants started to chase the bus. The elephants started to run behind the bus, and the people in the bus were really worried. They started to cry loudly, and the elephants chased the bus for a while, and then they stopped, and the bus escaped, and the bus moved away. But what is interesting is that this happened. If there are people here who is from Kerala who can understand, this incident happened between a place called Farooq in Kerala and Ramanatagara. Farooq and Ramanatagara. Between that is the place where this incident happened. And nobody can think that elephants were there, wild elephants being there in that place right now. It is all occupied by human beings. The elephants have been pushed into small, tiny bits of forest. And when they come out to reach out to the next forest, we call it as human-wildlife conflict. There's a big, huge cry, and everybody is against the wildlife. In a place called Wayanad in Kerala, I have seen a procession by school kids with placards saying that we don't want tiger, we don't want leopard. Small kids, school kids in uniform, organizing a procession on the road, speaking against wildlife. Now, this is something of huge concern for everybody, including the church. Who taught the students that wildlife is against human beings? I was really surprised. I'm pained to see that happening in Kerala. While across the globe, there's a high sensibility coming up for the rights of animals. and to safeguard the lives of animals, there are places where the reverse message is being circulated. I look up many of the specifics which we can do at the moment. One is for kids. There's a very interesting message which was presented earlier, like having a sounds of nature played in churches, and kids asked to write about animals. Now, what is interesting is that kids can be asked to name every animal which which they come across. There are animals which live inside our house, starting from the ants, the lizard, the cockroach, many animals, spiders, daddy long legs. Or there are a large number of animals living within the house. Now, kids should name each one of them, not the scientific name or the technical name. They can name those animals just like we name kids. So that will be an interesting activity. And when you name it, when you put a name for that, you start to love it. And you need to observe them, look closely at the behavior, understand them, and if you are comfortable living in your house with all the animals which the house, that is the first step in living in a planet along with different animals. You cannot use pesticides to kill animals in your house and then go out and try to help the animals out there in the forest. So starting from the home, name them, understand them, and call them by the name, and not just your pets, but other animals which come over. Once you have done that, just get outside your house, get into a garden, get into your premises, and then you'll be coming across a large number of animals out there. Start to name them, look at their behavior, see when they are active, what they feed on, and where do they get the water from. So look at the whole world from their perspective. And once you have done that, then you can walk out to your street, take a walk, and see other animals which come across you. And gradually, you will emerge into a person who will look at the whole planet from an animal's point of view, not just a human's point of view. And this is the way we need to move forward. And I think the church can make a big difference in doing this, because you are leading a large number of youngsters on the best way to live around. So as I told you earlier, tell them that being rich is a shameful thing. Secondly, name every animal which comes in front of you. Be in love with them, and let there be animals who recognize you, and that's a wonderful thing to do. When I was doing my research, I was working on a moth, and when I was studying about the moth, I really was amazed by what St. Francis of Assisi did. He used to talk to parrots, he used to talk to birds, he used to talk with animals. So I wondered if I could talk to my moth, I could ask the moth for all my questions which I was trying to answer. Now that's something which across the globe the Christians know. Read about St. Francis of Assisi and how he related to the whole planet, and how he related to the fact of being poor. Being poor is not a financial thing. You can learn many things. Being poor is the only way you can learn many things in the whole world. It's a totally different way of understanding. Only by being poor you understand the whole world. So this is a totally different way of looking at the whole world around us, and also a totally new way of looking at what Christianity owns up. It was a brilliant document which was produced by a Pope the year before last. A wonderful document for the whole of the planet. The message has to go very far. So we have all the resources, we have the ideas, we need to have a process in which the celebration of creation, and this season has to be extended much, much, much further. It has to reach more people. It has to reach the small kids. And they have to be told that this is the only planet which we have to live on. There's a person called James Lovelock. James Lovelock was a scientist, and he is nearly 99 years old now. His latest book has come up. It is titled Novacine, and in which he says that there's very little chance that there will be life anywhere else in this universe. And the second thing is that if the entire life on this planet is erased, there's very little chance that life can come again. So this is a prediction from the part of the scientist. Now, this is very much true also. Every life on this planet is so, so precious. And we need to devise methods in which we need to conserve them. So I would suggest that today we go back home and look at the animals living within our houses. Then we are going to look at the species, the animals and plants which are living just outside the houses. Then we are going to look at all those life forms who are out there in the streets. And one day we'll all go to the forest and see a forest where animals are comfortable, a forest where animals doesn't rush to you to attack you. I dream of that particular day when the animals are so happy in the forest, so that I can walk around them, and while I doesn't disturb them, they should also not disturb me. Thank you all. Thank you. I find that Reverend Paul Robert Kennedy has raised hand. Would you please ask a question?
Sir, in loving, in practice of loving animals, can we adopt? Can we adopt the practices that Jainism adopt in loving animals? They don't even even small ants are important for them. They don't kill even when they pass through the road. They're very much conscious about the even ants. They don't try to kill the ants. So what they do is they take one stick, broom in their hand, and clean the path and move forward. Can we adopt? Can we go that to that extreme in loving animals? To what extent?
You're free to go to any extent, because love is something which cannot be restricted. And actually what is going to happen is that when you love animals, you are graduating towards a better human being. That is really what happens. You will graduate to a better and better human being, a person who is in tune with nature. I will tell you the other side of the story. Like, for example, there are a large number of tourist centers in forest, especially waterfalls, forest areas. I see people rushing to the tourist centers to have a glimpse of the nature. And looking very closely, we can understand that the people who are going to see nature, to be part of nature, they go to the seashore, they go to waterfalls, they go to forest areas, basically because of a disease called nature deficit syndrome. The place where you live, the place where we interact, there is not enough nature. And man is a part of nature. And we need to understand that the nature should be with us all through our life. So it is because of this thing, if you get a holiday, you run away to nature to refill yourself. And now if that happens, it is our duty to protect it and to make it the best possible, so that other living beings can also survive. And survival of every living being is important for the smooth survival of human beings also. So that's why. I have a question from Philip Robinson. What are the activities we may suggest to youth community towards conservation? Interesting question. Actually, that's a long topic to discuss, but there are many different types of activities which are possible. Basically making people sensitive to the nature around, sensitive to the animals and plants around. So there's a huge number of activities. We have an ongoing program in my institution where we do that. I can share the details to Dr. Matthew Kochi by email so that can be circulated. Agnes Felsia asks, what is the condition of India in the case of carbon emission? Actually, India comes on top bracket if you look at the total emission which is happening across the globe. If you calculate the country which is emitting the largest carbon, it is China, and second comes India, if you take the entire country. But if you divide the amount of carbon emitted by the number of people who are living here, then India goes down. It goes below 20. So India is a big emitter, but then the per capita emission is very low. So that's the status of India. There's another question from Lakshmi. Lakshmi asks, can you explain now alien invasive species? And also, what is the situation of China's carbon footprint? China's carbon footprint, I told that China is on top if you take the total emission from the country. But with a huge population, if you look at the per capita emission, China goes down and the US comes on top. Now, Lakshmi asks about invasive species. There are species which move away from their normal area or their native area, goes into new area and create problem. So those species are called as invasive species, and they are also called as alien. Like for example, kangaroos for kangaroo, the native range is Australia. Or for the Nilgiri tar, the native range is in Kerala, in India. So likewise, every species has its own normal distribution, but man takes them to new locations. And when they reach new locations, there will not be any organism which feeds on them, and they escape from the pressure of the predators. So there's nothing to check their population size. Their population explode. And then they cause three types of impacts. One is the environmental impact, the second is the economic impact, and the third is human health impact. So if any of this impact happens, then we declare that that particular species is an alien invasive organism. So that's it, Lakshmi, on alien invasive species. The questions in the chat box are over. Any more questions?
Hello, Sajiv, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I am John from Kottayam. Thank you very much for your beautiful presentation. While you presented the topic, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, sure.
Yes. Yeah. You mentioned specially about Saint Francis of Assisi, as well as Pope, probably Francis. But we have a man, or there lived a man in India whom we call M.K. Gandhi. He is the father of our nation. And he, in very simple words, emphasized the need for protecting this planet, as there is enough for the need of all, but not for the greed of anyone. Why in India we can take this slogan and teach our students and our fellow beings. One more thing, we Christians, we consider Gandhi as someone who won't be accepted in heaven. But there was a missionary known as Stanley Jones, and he once said that the heaven will be poorer if Mahatma Gandhi is not there. Thank you. Please.
Thank you, sir. Wonderful words. I'll make myself very clear. There are many people, and so important is the mention of Mahatma Gandhi, Walden. In fact, Mahatma Gandhi got his tutoring on environment from a person called Thoreau, and so that's a lineage. There are many people who come to that particular lineage. I'm sorry that I missed the name of Mahatma Gandhi, and thank you, sir, for mentioning it. Mike, what I would like to add is that the notion of success for we people is absolutely skewed. Like, for example, when I sell my bicycle and buy a motorcycle, I'll be termed as a successful person. When I graduate from a motorbike to a car, I'll be looked upon as a successful person. When I build a big house, I'll be looked upon as a successful person. Now, what essentially happens is that I remain the same, and I just increase my carbon emission. That's only what is happening. If I'm the same person who travel in a bicycle or a motorcycle, but then the only difference is the amount of carbon emitted. But people will understand that I am becoming more and more successful. Now, this is the notion which we need to attack. We need to target this particular notion. A successful person should not be measured on the increased levels of carbon which that particular person is emitting. So this is a totally different way of looking at it. As you said, Mahatma Gandhi, if in Kerala somebody lives just like an ashram, like Mahatma Gandhi lived, nobody will just look at it. And if at all they look at it, they will declare that that person is a lost person or a non-successful person. Now, that's the way we look at the whole world around us. We need to have a shift, and we need to celebrate the ways of the poor and not the ways of the rich. Thank you again, sir. Jansi from Vellore Diocese, thank you for your words. I don't find any more questions in the chat box. Any questions? Yes. Has Dr. Padmini raised her hand? Please ask. Please. You can unmute and ask question. Please unmute.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sir, can we, I think we can observe some conflict behavior among the animals. Is it no, sir? Conflict behavior
Yes.
of an animal.
Mm-hmm.
Sir? So,
For example?
sir, it's a conflict behavior of an animal, sir. Conflict behavior of an animal. Sometimes they will become so aggressive. Even the pet animals also, which we are rearing at home also. And can we have that kind of behavior even in the forest also, sir?
Yeah, interesting question. Yeah.
Yeah. And
interesting.
we can at least we can control this kind of aggressiveness at home, sir, whereas we cannot deal that one in the forest areas also. There are so many wild animals out there, and also some so many different types of animals are there, and we can observe this kind of conflict behavior. Is it possible, the people, those who are staying in that forest areas, is it possible for them to control them, no, sir, to get protection from them when they'll become aggressive? Can you understand, sir, what I'm asking?
Sure. I got
Yes, sir.
Got it.
Yes.
I'll try to answer you. See, unlike the domestic animals or the
Yes,
pet
sir.
animals,
Yes.
the animals of the wild are much more in the natural setting. And we don't normally observe conflict behavior in the forest. It's a natural setting. Conflict behavior happens when we cage animals, or when we put animals in a situation which they are not used to. Like, for example, a dog. If a dog is being maintained in your house, it will be absolutely obeying, but at some point of time, it will move away from its normal behavior, and it may attack its own master also. That type of behavior doesn't happen in the forest because that's a natural setting. There's absolutely nothing which controls their behavior. They are absolutely free to roam around, and we don't observe conflict behavior in the forest. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Koshi. I think there is some problem with his mic. But before I propose vote of thanks, let me brief you that this year we celebrated NCCI Tribal and Adivasi Sunday across the country on the theme Leaving No One Behind. It was taken from 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verses 24, and it was also the event theme for this year. And in continuation to that, the NCCI program cluster of Dalit and tribal Adivasi concerns has come up to celebrate season of creation with the overall theme Home for All. So we try to connect our NCCI Tribal and Adivasi Sunday along with this season of creation by organizing 4 thematic webinars on rivers, animals, mountains, and forest on all Tuesdays in the month of September, especially emphasizing the situation of Dalits, tribals, and Adivasis, as they are the worst receivers of climate disaster, as mentioned by Dr. Sajiv also. Just to mention that we already had a webinar on rivers on 7th of September, and today is the second webinar on animals. Likewise, we'll have our next webinars on 21st of September on mountains, and we will culminate this season of creation on 28th of September with the webinar on forest. You all are invited to join, and we will share the Zoom link, ID, and password with all of you. Now, I take this opportunity to extend my sincere thanks and gratitude to Dr. Rachel Marsh, the environmental coordinator in Anglican Church, and she hails from South Africa, and Dr. T.V. Saji, the principal scientist of Kerala Forest Research Institute, for accepting our invitation and for their inspiring presentations. I would also like to thank Dr. Matthew Koshi, the Honorary Director of CSI Department of Ecological Concerns, and he is also Advisor of Eco-Justice Concerns of NCCI Data Concerns, for collaborating with us and doing most of the arrangements for this webinar, and we also appreciate his hard work. I would also like to extend my thanks to our General Secretary, Reverend Asir Ebenezer, for providing the timely support, as well as Mr. Angelus Michael, Ms. Renan Songla Ozukung, the team of Eco-Justice Concerns of NCCI to put it together. Special thanks goes to my colleague, Mr. Solomon Raja, for designing this poster, and also the technical team of CSI for arranging this webinar in a smooth way. Last but not the least, my hearty thanks to all the participants for your valuable time and participation. Looking forward to journeying together in the days to come. Much appreciated. Thank you, and nice evening. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you very much. We are closing the program.